Hey everyone, today I have a guide to a budget Starhorn deck built around Starhorn the Seeker and Battle Pets. Starhorn the Seeker has a Bloodborne spell that allows both players to draw a card. And if you saw my video from yesterday, you might have heard me talk about how to build decks that make symmetrical abilities such as the Bloodborne spell here, which seem weak, not actually have symmetrical impact. So the way this deck does it is by having a very low curve that allows you to play multiple spells in a turn more often than your opponents. So the cards you draw are able to be deployed. So even if your opponent has a full hand, they don't get to use those cards. So the card advantage isn't realized. It's kind of an unrealized advantage that they have, whereas you have a very real board advantage. So just to go over the cards real quick, we have Blood Tier Alchemist, which is an early game play and a ping, like we talked about, that just deals some damage. We only have two here, but you could definitely add a third if you're seeing things like Reva. And it's a very strong card, but of course it dies to the 1 health. Although we have a lot of 1 health minions in this deck, so that's going to be a vulnerability we have. One of the stranger cards is Razor Skin. Now this deck is very much a flood deck, and Razor Skin gives all your minions plus 1 health. Now this isn't really the type of deck that you stay on the board for long. Your creatures only last a turn or two, they just don't have the health to last anymore. But if you can set up a situation where you have 3 or 4 creatures on the board, and you play this and give all your minions plus 1 attack, and then you get a battle pet into your action bar to replace the card you just spent, and then you can replace it or you can deploy it, and you don't give up a lot of tempo with this because you can fit it in on turns when you have 1 extra mana. It's just a card I'm testing. It's been pretty cool so far, but just something to think about. Rex is a 3/1 rebirth. So this is one of those 1 health minions I talked about. It dies to pretty much everything. It will basically be an egg every turn, and they just have to choose whether or not they want to kill it. And basically, the strength in this deck comes from they don't have the time to sit there and attack your egg because they need to move around away from your other minions, and they need to be attacking your other minions that are bearing down on them. So Rex is pretty strong in this deck. I think you'll see in some of the games I recorded. Shroud is just a dispel. It did get nerfed, so it's a 1/1, which isn't great because having the 2/2 body, 2/2 usually isn't good because it can be killed off by the general, but because this is sort of a face deck, the 2/2, the extra damage when they hit it with the general, even if they get that free kill on it, kind of adds up. But it's not a huge deal, and Dispel is such a strong effect, you still want to play it, I think. Maybe we'll do some testing. Grow is basically a pile of stats. It's actually pretty hard to play. I think you'll see that I misplay with it at some point during this video. But it's very strong. It basically, on the turn after you play it, it will be attacking as a 3/5. And they probably need to put 2 attacks into something like that if it comes out early game. Sometimes you want to place it further back so it can kind of just be a slow moving inevitability engine where it's slowly moving down. It will only take a turn or two. The board isn't that big, but placing your grow is actually a big part of the card. Actually placing any battle pet, but especially grow, I believe. We only have 1 Primus Fist. I don't know if this is right or not. The reason we only have 1 is because we don't have a lot of minions that stay on the board. Basically, Primus Fist is best when you're trading up, and since we don't get to choose who to attack with Rex or Grow, we can't play it on them before they attack. We basically are doing Silithars or some of the bigger minions, and it just doesn't really shine in this deck. But since this deck is still aggressive and does want to fight for board control sometimes, I think it's still good, and sometimes I like to put 1 of cards in my deck at the beginning when I'm playing them to see which ones perform and which ones don't, and help me make decisions down the line of what cards I'm happy to draw and what cards I'm not. So I have a Primus Fist. It's pretty good. Silithar is basically just a 2/3 rebirth, and basically it's an early game play that helps you gain some board control, and it's hard to remove in a single turn. So, especially early game. So it just helps you seize the board and set up your plays for the next turn. It helps you control the mana tiles, which is a big part of this. Playing this towards a mana tile to get 4 mana on your second turn as first player, or playing this on a mana tile and then a grow behind is pretty good as well. Next we have Blazehound, great in aggressive decks, decent sized body. Both players draw a card, which we're going to be doing a ton with Starhorn anyways. And it's we're just going to break that symmetry. Now, Blistering Scorn, actually, after I played these couple games, I wasn't actually impressed with it in this deck because we have so many 1-health minions, which does make sense, and I should have seen that coming. But I still think it might be worth including because the ability to ping everything is so strong. And you can often trade off your minions and then play the Scorn to get better trades and ping off their remaining health off their minions and still have it be worthwhile. The issue is you have a lot of eggs in this deck, and you don't want to ping off your eggs. So I'm not sure if it's right in this deck, and I'm pretty sure that 3 might not be the right number. But we'll see. I don't actually know if I played in these couple games. Golden Mantella is a big frog that gives you a battle pet in your action bar when you play it. Now it's an opening gambit, which is cool because you don't have to wait for the value like some similar cards. There's a 4/2 Void Hunter, which when it Dying Wish, 4/2, 3 mana, when it dies, you get a card. Basically, a battle pet in this deck is pretty close to your average card value a lot of the time, and you can always replace it. It being a 4/2 would normally be a huge detriment because it can be killed off by the general. But like I said, this deck is a swarm deck. You're going to be putting down more than one threat every turn. So if they're standing still and answering your threat and taking that face damage, you're not in that bad of a shape. But Pulsar Beast gets rid of your provokes or any problem minions. You're going to win by turn 5 or 6, or you're probably going to lose. So you're just tossing those for a couple turns and beating face. Saberspine Tiger is that late game face damage. It combos with some of the buffs. You can combo it with Razor Skin, and it certainly combos with the next card, Thumping Wave. Adding 5 damage, hitting for 8 off the top is huge. Or you can use, or you can actually use either of these for removal. This can be used for removal. In this deck, it's usually not. It's usually used to combo. But if you need to remove a minion for whatever reason, Saberspine Tiger or Thumping Wave can turn it into a 3/3, which is not as good in this deck as it is if your general is Voth. I believe that's how you pronounce it, because you won't have 3 attacks, so making the 3/3 won't just kill itself on your general a lot of the time. And if it does, it's going to do 6 damage instead of 3. So that's something to think about. This is usually used offensively in this deck. Also used in combination with Wings of Paradise. Wings of Paradise is a card that I talked about yesterday. I think it's pretty underrated. It's a great aggro card that you can play safely and then have it just fly in and hit for 5, which is huge out of a 3-drop. Hitting for 5 damage and surviving on the enemy general is just a huge value. As long as you have other minions to distract them on the board, it's a really good card. We only have 2 of those. Maybe a Scorn out for one of these would be a decent idea. Now, Eludicator, I believe this is pronounced. This is just another rush minion. Deals 4 damage to your general. So, it definitely hits you pretty hard. But it hits even harder. 5 damage is huge out of a 4-drop. Rush is just an amazingly strong ability in this game. And I only play 1 because I actually only have 1 on this account right now. But I think maybe going up to 2 or even 3 might be the answer. Although 4 is actually a lot of mana in this deck because you're playing more than 1 spell a turn. You don't want to be stuck with a glut of expensive spells. This is actually the top of our curve because this next card, Mandrake, costs 1 less for any minion, for each minion that any player summons. So you're going to usually be playing these for like 2 or less mana. 1 or 0 are probably the most common. So that's the deck, and now I'm just going to go over 2 replays. Try not to make this too long. Here we go. Match history, here we go. First replay. And, I don't have the players' names covered, but just please not, really, so basically, we're mulliganing. We want to mulligan to our Silithar Elders, our Grows. Not so much Rexes and Blood Tears, but these two are big early game minions, so we want to go towards that. First turn, so they basically, we're playing against Vetruvian. They take their first steps up and play a Pax. Now, Pax is so strong right now. It's a 2-1 that when a Dying Wish summons two 2/2s, which basically means it's very hard to take board control from the Vetruvian early, because when you kill that, even if I were to kill this with, say, a Scorn or an Alchemist, it's still going to pop out those 2/2s, which then can act. So what you want to do is let this die on their turn, so that the 2/2s can't act immediately, most of the time. These are all just heuristics. These aren't things you want to do in every situation, but most of the time you don't want to give them 4 power to act with on their second turn. So in this case, they're only able to act with 2 power, and it's 2 power that's difficult for them to control. So, when I play my first turn, I'm going to play the Silithar Elder, or Young Silithar, Silithar is a completely different card, to absorb the hit from the Pax, which it's going to do, and go to a 2-1. And then I'm going to play the Grow in a sort of a defensive position. The reason for this is that, it's just going anyways. So the Pax are going to move forward and attack. And now the Young Silithar is at 1 health. So if they have a ping, they can kill it, but they can't just kill it with a general attack. And if they were to make it into an egg, it will just rebirth on my turn. So I'm fine with that. This Grow over here is going to hatch and be able to value trade, which means trade without dying against these 2/2s, which can't move on this turn yet. So that's why I did that placement. Now on this player's turn, they cast the Wish, which means they just draw a card. It's basically just a cycle, draws them a card. Now it makes it so I can't trade off easily here. And then they play a Fireblade's Obelisk, which actually buffs their 2 dervishes. So I actually take an extra damage on the Grow here. Now, I want to kill this very badly, and I could kill it using Scorn and Blood Tear. But I would egg my Silithar, and I would have to use attacks from both of these on it, and I wouldn't be able to control this dervish, which I think is not what we want to do, even though killing this is a priority, because otherwise it's pumping out value every turn. So instead what I'm going to do is try to control the dervish. I'm going to replace the Mandrake, because it's a late game card. It's not a card we play for a lot of mana, but it's a card that we want to play for cheap so we can play it alongside other cards. So instead we're going to try to destroy the dervish and make it, I don't want them to have power to act with on the board. You don't want your opponents making decisions, sort of. You want to be making the decisions so you can set up profitable decisions. So by killing this 4 attack minion, I'm leaving them with only 3 attack, because they're going to make a 2/2 that's buffed with 1 attack by this, plus their general to act with. And I'm going to basically set up a barrier using my minions. I place my Grow over here, so it can get a free attack on this. It won't take damage in return. It won't kill it, but it won't take damage in return. And it will grow, so it will just, be able to do free damage. I actually forgot that this one, if they don't play a minion closer, will run over here and attack it first, and it will grow to 4 damage and kill it off. So I kind of missed that situation, but that was my line of thinking. Rex is just here because if they kill it, it just rebirths on my turn, and they're unlikely to be able to kill it with 2 things. So, now I let them do their turn. They play a flying. When it dies, draw a card. Now, that doesn't matter much to me, because my minions are not that individually important. So I don't really care if they can go pick off one of my minions. Even if they were to kill this for free, it just doesn't bother me that much. So I sort of just ignore this for the rest of the game, actually. And, my Battle Pets all attack, can't control that. That's part of the deck, so placing it is very important. Battle Pet placement is very important in this deck. And I get Razor Skin, which I'm actually really excited about, because it actually does buff eggs, which is kind of strange. But when he hatches, he won't be buffed. But I get to buff 4 creatures, which is pretty huge value, and get a Battle Pet in my action bar. So I'm likely going to play the Golden Mantilla, and actually I'm buffing 5 creatures. I believe I draw a card first. Oh, actually I play the Oni, so I'm buffing 6 creatures. Including a force field minion, which is amazing. Force field is such a strong ability. It's very hard to get off the board, and that leads to concession. So you see that awesome razor skin value, and you see the kind of the power of the swarm. So that was the first game. The next game, I'm doing this wrong still. This is against Reva, who is kind of a huge force in the ladder. Now, I trade in Repulsor Beast because we don't really want to push anything back. That's more of like a turn 4 or 5 play often. I keep the Scorn, even though it's pretty bad in my hand, because of her Bloodborne spell, which is Summon a Heartseeker, which is a 1/1 ranged minion. So I want to be able to pick that off because there's a lot of threat in her playing one of those and then playing a Killing Edge on it, which is a spell that gives it +4/+2, and a 5 attack ranged minion is very, very difficult for any deck to deal with. Any deck. So even though it's not that good against my deck because we're playing a bunch of different minions, so having just the one attack, just killing one off every turn isn't that great, but it's still very strong, and I want to have an answer for that before it can be buffed. So in this game, I actually make a mistake on turn 1. I run forward, and like I said, grow placement is very important. I place the grow right here. Now, why is this wrong? Here's why. Songhai has a card called Lantern Fox. Lantern Fox is very strong. It's a 2/4 for 3 mana. When it takes damage, they get to put a Phoenix Fire in their hand. Phoenix Fire is a 2 mana, 3 damage to a minion or general spell. And I don't want to give them Phoenix Fires. You want to try to kill that Lantern Fox without them getting a lot of value from it, which is difficult in a lot of cases. But I place my grow in such a way that it's going to be able to reach this square right here, or this square, but this square is often where people will place their first move, and it will give them, it won't kill it, it will do 3 damage to it, putting it at 2/1, so they're going to get 2 Phoenix Fires off it. I should have placed it further back. Now, one thing to think about is I really don't have a 4 damage way to hit the Lantern Fox, so this might not be that big of a deal in this particular deck, but it's still, the thing to think about is when you play Battle Pets against opponents who have creatures that trigger on hit or on damage, you want to be very cautious about who your Battle Pets are going to attack. Now, that's like Earth Sister is a big problem, Nimbus is a big problem, and Lantern Fox. Those are the 3 you'll see the most. So, as it so happens, she does have the Lantern Fox, and she actually inner focuses it to allow it to attack the turn it's played, which is kind of a weird move here because maybe not something she could avoid, but the way she played this out actually means that oh, excuse me, I was wrong. I thought she was going to have an overloaded hand, where if you draw more than 6, you don't get the card, and I was wrong. So right here, I'm just playing my Mantilla, playing out a Battle Pet. You can if you play a 1-mana creature minion on a mana tile, you basically get it for free in terms of mana. So I'm basically dumping a lot of stats onto the board. That's my priority. Now, she has 2 Phoenix Fighters in hand, and I know she can kill both of these. And I'm fine with that, because if she uses all her tempo killing the 2 things I deployed that turn, we both played 4 mana worth of things, except I also developed a Rex, and my grow is also going to grow. I don't feel like I'm in a bad position if that happens. Now, grow just kind of goes in this direction because Battle Pets have some kind of weird AI sometimes. So right now what I'm doing is just deploying my young Silithar to sort of control the middle of the board, to let me play minions further up and try to keep on top of her. And I'm also playing my Wings of Paradise back, and I've talked about this a few times, but playing it back is one of the strengths of it, because I can attack for 5 damage and stay alive, which is what I'm looking to do. Now, she uses her Owl Beast Sage and her Bloodborne spell to make this a 4/6, which is usually very difficult to remove. But because we have the powerful card of Wings of Paradise, we can do 5 damage with just that. And now we have options like Blistering Scorn, Blood Tear, or even Razor Skin. We can basically use all kinds of cards. So what I want to do is get some Razor Skin value. I have 4 minions on the board, which is a good number. So I'm likely going to play the Alchemist just to ping her, and then use the Razor Skin to allow my wings just to trade off with the Owl Beast. And, she spent 4 mana on that, and I'm only spending 3 mana, I guess plus the 1 mana, but that will also buff my board. So I'm kind of getting some tempo value out of this. And I'm also going to be moving towards her and kind of boxing her in. So, as I play this out, I don't play the Blood Tear on top of her yet, right up close, because I don't really want to attack her with it. I want to be able to use it to kill minions. Ideally, you want to use these type of things to kill minions. That's how you're going to get the best value. Now, I actually get a pretty cool battle pet. It's a 4/4 that can't move. But since I'm boxing her in, it's pretty good here. It controls basically this entire part of the board, because it's very hard for her to get by. And it kind of, blocks off these squares, because she can't just afford to take 2 hits to the face and take 8 damage from it, because I'm playing so aggressively. So she's either needs to run right towards me, or just sit in this little corner. Well, these 2 squares, these 3 squares. So this was actually a pretty interesting pull off of the Razor Skin. Next, I'm going to attack with my Wings of Paradise, kill off her Owl Beast. I'm trying to just restrict the amount of board. She's playing a deck that plays Arcanist creatures or minions and then buffs them. So I don't want her to have a bunch of Arcanist minions, even if I'm trying to be the aggressive face deck. I don't want them to just snowball out of control. She plays another one now, and I'm just constantly needing to answer. And my Grow gets Phoenix Fired, which is unfortunate because it was getting pretty big. That 6 attack was pretty big, and now this is a 4/6 a second time. Now, here's one of the situations where silence is great. Now, I use Seeing Eye, which is usually bad against Songhai, but she's sitting with a hand of 5 cards already. She's pretty high on cards, which means that since I can play my entire hand, basically, I don't think I'll be playing the Repulsor Beast this turn, but I can play most of my hand. I'm able to deploy all of these cards very rapidly, and she needs to constantly be answering them. So I'm just going to get more value out of my cards than she's able to. So the play right here I'm looking at is using this Shroud to dispel this, which put it back to 4 health. This conveniently has 3 attack, so if I move this forward, I can attack this and then ping with the Blood Tear to finish it off. After doing that, my Mandrake will be free to cast, and I'll just deploy that as well. I won't use the Repulsor Beast just as a 2/2, because the ability is so powerful, you do want to get value out of that, even though we want to be playing our minions aggressively. And I think since Reva doesn't have a lot of Provoke minions, I might be looking to just replace the Repulsor Beast eventually. So I basically go for those attacks. I do move the Blood Tear up, and I choose not to attack with it yet because it's serving a good purpose of boxing her in. But it's one thing to think about is if you have a lot of 1 health minions against Songhai, look for Ghost Lightning to come out. And that's a 1 mana card that deals damage to all of the enemy minions, all of Songhai's enemy minions, which means all of my minions. So I'm worried about that. So if you can get the value from your creatures early, I actually do attack to try to play around that card. And I don't know if she has it this game, but it's just an interesting thing to think about is when you want to play around cards, what your opponent has. Now, the obvious removal is Bear Seal, which turns your minion into an 0/2, but it's still your minion, which is actually important here because it plays such a strong role in board control, and it can't be attacked as well. So it's kind of like a little wall, sort of. And that's pretty much how I use it. Now, we actually went from having a really big board to having no board, but she's still boxed in because of this 4/3 and just the position we've taken. We draw a great card off the replace and get a 6. It's our biggest card in the deck, so we did get pretty lucky there. And I play this here in the Silithar here rather than here because I don't want... if she plays a creature here, a minion here, it can be killed by this rock, which doesn't bother me as much. So she has to deal with that. If I instead, right now she's trying to control the Mandrake. So she's using her Tiger and Mist Dragon Shield. She's using 2 cards and 3 cards in 7 total mana. Excuse me, six total mana to kill something I played for 0 mana, which is a huge tempo gain for me. It took almost her entire turn, and a bunch of cards. So she's pretty boxed in, and this is why we play these cards. You like to draw cards first before you decide if you want to replace things, so you can see all your options. You want to be able to consider all your options. The replay is kind of bugging out, not showing me what I got exactly. But I guess I got the 3rd Mandrake, which is huge. So basically, playing the 4/2, playing the 6/6 is just huge, huge amount of damage. She's kind of trapped in this corner the entire game. 4 Winds Magi is a very strong card. Every time she plays a spell, I'm going to get hit with one for 1 damage. She's going to restore 1 health. So that's very, very strong. But it's at a point in the game where it almost doesn't matter. And you see this placement we forced her into allows her to be killed off by this rock, which is just amazing. The game's not going to go on too much longer. And then she has a 2nd Ghost Lightning, which puts this in egg and kills this. This can be damaged by spells and would allow her to run away if she wanted to. She chooses not to. I'm not entirely sure it matters. So basically, we get... the replay's not working for no reason, but we did draw the Elucidator? Elucidator? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. And just finish her off. So, pretty clean game. So, that was the Starhorn budget deck. I will throw the deck list in the description. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, all that. If you have any questions, please just message me. It's a really fun deck. I think you can get to Diamond. I think maybe you can get to S rank. It's pretty interesting to play. It will teach you a lot of things about aggressive decks and when to be aggressively attacking the enemy general and when to control the board. And it will teach you a lot about symmetrical effects. I think it has a lot of interesting principles that makes it a great deck to learn from. General that doesn't see a ton of play, so you can get some variety. And I had a lot of fun with it, and I think Battle Pets are great. Like I said, I got to S rank with the Starhorn Battle Pets deck. So thanks for watching, guys.